Welcome to our latest video, the Poisoned Glen and Balor of the Evil Eye. The drive towards Mount Errigal, Donegal's largest peak, along the R251 is one of the most spectacular in Ireland. Not only do you pass through the picturesque village of Dunlugh with its shimmering lake and restored old church, you gaze upon one of Ireland's natural wonders, full of history and beauty, the Poisoned Glen. The Poisoned Glen lies at the foot of Mount Errigal, the tallest peak of the Derivay Mountains, in Dunlugh, part of Gweedore, in the Donegal Gaeltacht. The Derivay mountain range in Donegal, or as it is referred to by the locals, the Seven Sisters, also includes Little Errigal and Muckish Mountain. The Poisoned Glen is also a much visited venue for mountaineering and rock climbing, as it has the Bernas Buttress, which is Ireland's largest continual rock face. Many people have wondered why an area of such breathtaking natural beauty would be called the Poisoned Glen. A story gaining more and more traction is that it was wrongly translated from Irish to English long ago, and in reality it should be called the Heavenly Glen. This is because the Irish word for heaven is niall, and the Irish word for poison is niamh, so you can see how a mistake could have been made. However, the story I prefer regarding the name of the Poisoned Glen involves Balor of the Evil Eye. Balor was the son of Net, and Lord and King of the Formorians, the grotesque race that inhabited Ireland before the coming of the Tuatha De Danann, or the tribe of Danu. In Irish mythology, Balor can be equated to a god of death and destruction. He became known as Balor of the Evil Eye after he was caught spying on druids preparing a draught of wisdom. Some of the potion splashed onto his eye, which made his stare devastating and harmful to all those he looked upon. He kept his evil eye closed when not in battle, and his lid was so heavy that he actually needed 4 attendants to lift it. Balor lived on the Isle of Tory, off the coast of what is now Donegal. He had a very beautiful daughter by the name of Ithnu, who he kept closed away in a tower out of men's view. However, word of her beauty spread, and she was kidnapped and brought to Marorty on the mainland. In a rage, Balor followed, determined to retrieve his daughter. He pursued her captors, catching up with them at the entrance to what is now called the Poisoned Glen. He picked up a giant stone and crushed her kidnappers, and this stone still stands. It is said to be the poisoned eye of Balor. Now, the story of Balor goes beyond Donegal, Tory, and the Poisoned Glen. Essentially, it's a tale of good versus evil, of light banishing darkness, and the rebirth of Ireland from chaos and disruption, and I'd like to explore that further. Balor was called the King of Demons by his enemies. He was undefeated in battle, as no army could withstand the destructive force of his eye when it was opened. His 4 retainers, who accompanied him at all times, had only one job, which was to raise his eyelid in the heat of battle. Because of his destructive force, Balor is often depicted wearing an eye patch. Other folklore sources describe his eye as follows. It was always covered with 7 cloaks to keep it cool. He took the cloaks off one by one. At the first, ferns began to wither. At the second, grass began to redden. At the third, wooden trees began to heat up. At the fourth, smoke came out of the wooden trees. At the fifth, everything got red hot. At the 6th, the land would quake, and at the 7th, the whole land would catch fire. Now, Balor was a very superstitious man. He lived his life by one great prophecy, that he could only be killed by his own grandson. To ensure his only child Ithnu would never marry or bear children, he kept her imprisoned in that high tower on his stronghold of Tory Island. Now, as we've seen in the story of the Poisoned Glen, Ithnu was freed once and recaptured. And this was not repeated, as she remained imprisoned on the wild wind-swept Isle of Tory in her high tower, and there she stayed until Balor made a fateful mistake. Being the pirate he was, Balor led a raid on the mainland to steal the White Cow of Plenty, a mystical animal that supplied unending and copious amounts of milk. Balor's raid stole the cow, and he took it back to Tory. Now Cian, who was tasked with guarding the cow, was ashamed and resolved to get the animal back from Balor. On his quest, he sought the help of the druidess Birog. She told Cian that the cow could never be retrieved while Balor lived, so it was time for an alternative plan. he resolved to give Balor grandchildren. This would help fulfill the prophecy that Balor could only die at the hands of his grandson. With the help of Birrug and fair winds granted by the sea god Manannan, Cian was blown onto Tory and climbed the high tower, imprisoning Balor's daughter Ithnu. They made love, and Ithnu subsequently gave birth to 3 sons. Despite her pleas, Balor was steadfast in resolve that to prevent the prophecy, his 3 grandsons must die. They were thrown into the wild seas, and while 2 died, one was rescued by the sea god Manannan and raised as his son and given the name Lugh. While Lugh grew to manhood, protected by Manannan, the power of the Formorians, and Balor grew even stronger. Legend tells us that the Tuatha De Danann, the rulers of Ireland, fell under the heel of the undefeatable Balor and the Formorians. They decided to take a stand and fight for their freedom. The Book of Invasions outlines how the Tuatha De Danann lost the first battle and regrouped for vengeance. Lugh, who was both Formorian through his mother and of the Tuatha De Danann through his father Cian, was asked by the king Nuada to lead the Tuatha De Danann army as they regrouped and planned for a second battle. The battle did not begin well for the Tuatha De Danann. Balor removed his 7 cloaks, and his 4 attendants lifted the eyelid of his magical eye, unleashing carnage on the battlefield. In the fray, the Tuatha De Danann king Nuada was killed by Balor. Now the famed prophecy Balor did so much to avert began to unfold. Lugh, the grandson of Balor, took aim with his sling and, like David, slew the evil Goliath that was Balor. A rock smashed into his eye, thrusting it into the back of his head, and his frightening gaze reflected back upon the Formorian army, reducing them to dust. One other legend tells the tale that when Balor was slain by Lugh, his eye was still open when he fell face first into the ground. Thus his deadly eye beam burned a hole into the earth. Long after, the hole filled with water and became a lake, which is now known as the Lake of the Eye in County Sligo. Lugh eventually became the king of the Tuatha De Danann, victors over the Formorians, who then reigned over Ireland until their battles with the Firbolg. But that is another tale for another time. I hope you've enjoyed this short video on the Poisoned Glen and the story of Balor of the Evil Eye, and if so, why don't you like our Facebook page, Wild Atlantic Gweedore, and visit our website, wildatlanticgweedore.com. Thank you.